Man, every time I hear that, I feel like a beat need to drop at the end of that. Like it need to hit a little bit harder than it do. It's a nice lead up, but I feel like some 808s need to hit real hard at the end of that. Man, never mind what I'm talking about. FantasyHolics everywhere. What's going on? It's your homie Mo's Nose. Glad to be back with you again. We got the homies with us again. They didn't get enough last week, so they back for more. We got the OG Crush in the building. We got the homie the Bus in the building. What's going on, fellas? How y'all been today?
Doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
Good, good. All right, Bus. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm ready for another week of football, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, so far we've had two really, really good weeks of NFL football.
Hmm.
When the season starts, when it comes around, we never know what to expect. But I can say, as a football fan, and I know I can speak for a lot of football fans out there, even for some of those teams that are 0-2, that we have not been disappointed with the first 2 weeks of football so far. This is a fantasy show. We are FantasyHolics. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys know I got to go through the particulars. Listen, I don't like doing it, but I got to go through the particulars. We are FantasyHolics. You can follow us at FantasyHolics, all one word, on all social media platforms. Follow us on whichever one you prefer. If you're on all of them, follow us on all of them. If you only on one or two, then follow us on. You don't have if you don't have a Facebook account, I'm not telling you to create one. But if you got IG, then follow us on IG. Whatever
Yep.
you have, whatever your preference, whatever you use the most, follow FantasyHolics on that social media platform. You would think I would have more patience as a father of four, but when I don't have a lot of patience when it comes to having y'all follow because it's easy. It's free. It don't take much effort. You type in the FantasyHolics, you find us, click on it, and then hit follow. That's it. Very, very simple steps. If you want this knowledge, if you want to be in tune with some really good fantasy minds to help you get an edge in your fantasy leagues, you want to follow us on all those platforms. Fellas, let's start the week how we always start the week. At least now, since we have some data that we can reference, let's take a look at some top fantasy performers. Let me get back to my overlays. Boom. Top fantasy performers for week 3. Man, this pains me. This really does pain me because this little guy is in my division.
Uh,
I'm going to have to see him twice a year. And so far, through 2 weeks, Kyler Murray has made our top fantasy performer list. With a total of 33.1 fantasy points, Kyler Murray was 29 of 36 for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Don't forget, he can use those little legs, those little baby feet of his. 5 carries, 31 yards, and added another touchdown. Now, he did have 2 interceptions this game, and he let the Vikings team, who is struggling right now, he left the door open. Thankfully, their kicker missed the kick, and now the Cardinals are 2-0. I hate that I have to say that. But Kyler Murray is balling out, fellas. Let's talk about it. What have you seen from Kyler that, you know, is making him perform at such a high level like this?
And I think he's starting to get into his rhythm. So he's used to being in the NFL right now. He's got a little time under his belt, so he's not making as many inaccurate throws. He's got time in the pocket, so he's making those accurate throws when they need to be. And he senses the pressure really well. And when he sees that blitz coming, he's able to escape it.
you know, I think that is another year in Cliff Kingsbury's system. You know, I think now that he has another year under his belt, he's making smarter decisions with the football. He's not holding on to it. He's not making crazy error throws. Well, he did have 2 picks, but he's making a lot more of like concise decisions. You know, I think that we're seeing that he's actually putting in the work behind everything, and now you're starting to see it on the field.
Yeah, I mean, listen, uh, One thing that we do know about Cliff Kingsbury is he's a good offensive coordinator. He's great with offensive schemes and figuring out ways to move the ball and get the ball into the end zone. Despite his stature, we know Kyler Murray is a great quarterback. We know he's one of those once in a generation freak type athletes. He has the arm, he has the speed. Um, but one thing that has impressed me about him um, is his vision, his accuracy, and his decision making. Now, you say 2 interceptions. I don't know about his decision making. Sometimes he can get in that gunslinger mentality.
Mhm.
Sometimes he can force. He is still a young quarterback, but a majority of the game, his accuracy and his decision making is usually top notch. I mean, when you got guys flying down the field wide open, you got a guy like D Hop who, no matter where you put the ball, he's going to catch it.
Mhm.
That's a recipe for disaster. And hopefully, my 49ers got something cooked up to slow this guy down. Moving on. Lamar Action Jackson. This was probably the game of the week in the NFL. What a comeback by the Baltimore Ravens, led by Lamar Jackson with his 32.26 fantasy points. He was 18 of 26 for 239 and 1 touchdown. He did have 2 interceptions early, one that was taken back for a pick six. But Lamar did not fold in this game. And then we know what he can do with his legs. If we think Kyler Murray is dynamic, then I don't know what level you put Lamar Jackson on, but he had 16 carries for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. Um, let's talk about Lamar. Let's talk about that game. Um, Outside of fantasy, what did that game do for his confidence moving forward? Finally getting a win over Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and not allowing this Ravens team to fall in 0-2.
Well, I'm going to start with, it started off bad. I watched the beginning of that game. He threw that pick six to Ty Matthew. I was like, oh boy, here we go. It's going to be another Mahomes win against Lamar Jackson. But you got to give it to him. He hung in there. He kept it close, and he actually made it a point to say, hey, I'm not going to go down that easily. I'm going to come back. I'm going to claw. I'm going to fight, and we saw that on the field. He really stuck through the adversity there.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. Early on, he might have struggled, but like you said, he hung in there. Everybody was making plays. He was making plays. His running backs were making plays. Latavius Murray, Tyson Williams, they were doing what they needed to do. Marquise Brown was getting open. We got Andrews involved a little bit, not a lot, but he still got him involved, and they kept dragging him down the field. He's starting to make more throws, I think, but he's not taking those to be like, I'm under pressure. He's like not making those. He's staying in the pocket more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great game by Lamar Jackson and that Ravens team as a whole to get over that hump of not beating Mahomes and the Chiefs. All right, moving over to the running backs. Woo!
Oh,
Derrick Henry.
this guy killed me last week.
Now, I wanted to use a picture that had, some color to it. But this picture in black and white is so fire. It looks so menacing. Like when you
It's
see
scary.
his eyes and where his vision is, knowing he has that ball in his hands and what he could do with it. It's a very menacing picture. I think Titans photography team. This is a great shot. This is a great shot. With 47.7 fantasy points. Now, listen, I know some leagues score differently. Uh, this score, these scores that I'm reading off are based off of fantasydata.com and are based off of the PPR format. So you may be wondering, he scored more in my league or he scored less in my league. We know there are a bunch of different types of scoring leagues. some PPR, some standard. So don't be alarmed if his score doesn't match what was in your league. But you can check fantasydata.com. They're not a sponsor. They're not a plug. That's just where I got my information from to get that information. But 47.7 fantasy points, 35 carries, 182 yards, and 3 touchdowns, followed up with 6 receptions for 55 yards. He literally put this team on his back. At halftime, the Titans were down 24-6, and it looked really, really bleak. It looked like they were about to start 0-2. And then they gassed up that Mack truck that is Derrick Henry. Crush, I'm gonna let you take this one because you said he killed you last week. So you can go ahead and vent and let out your frustrations about this performance from Derrick Henry here.
First off, I want to say I appreciate you handing it off to me, knowing that how much pain I'm in. I really appreciate that. Yeah, like you said, man, they were down in the first half, and literally it was the Derrick Henry show in that second half. And I see that, right? That's 6 receptions for 55 yards from Derrick Henry. That's yep. Right. Wow.
That's correct.
Okay. If this starts becoming a norm for Derrick Henry, man, well, I don't know. I really don't know. You're looking at the end of the season where defenses are tired. He's breaking off 200-yard games, and he'll have a couple catches now. Like, come on. How fair is this? Honestly, how fair is this? Just calm down, Derrick Henry, at least when you're facing me.
Listen, man, I want this guy on my team. I don't know what team saw that made them, pass on Derrick Henry. I understand that, they say that the running back is getting devalued, but when you can do this, yes. Mainly all in the second half. And one thing that I love about Derrick Henry, he does get the Brandon Jacobs comps, but I think if we're being honest, Derrick Henry is a little bit faster. He's a little bit more nimble on his feet. And just seeing the past 2 off seasons and just following him on Instagram and just seeing how he works out, he really does take care of his body. So right. For someone to take care of his body the way that he does, to be able to carry the ball 35 times for 182 yards and literally put this team on his back, definitely kudos to the Titans defense. They tightened things up. Mike Vrabel got those guys to react a little bit better, play a little bit more clean, only held the Seahawks to 6 points in the second half. But defense in a running game, that'll get you the dub in 9 out of 10 situations. Right. Another running back who had a great fantasy day, Aaron Jones. Again, PPR format, 41.5 points, 17 carries for 67 yards and 1 touchdown. But he did his damage through the air, 6 receptions, 48 yards, and 3 touchdowns against this rebuilding Lions defense. But let's talk about Aaron Jones. Let's talk about the night that he had against this Detroit Lions defense.
And the Packers were all over it that night. Aaron Rodgers looked crisp. He got Aaron Jones, one of his favorite targets, involved. It was just the Aaron Jones show all day. I didn't expect him to get 3 receiving touchdowns, but he ended up doing it. So it was insane.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Crush.
No, I just wanted to add a little something to that. I don't know if everyone can hear Bus really well, but this game looked pretty good from the beginning. I mean, Detroit went down, they scored. You were thinking it was going to be a shootout, but Aaron Jones, man, he put this team on his back. He showed everyone, hey, look at this. This ain't going to be like week 1, buddy. All right, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to show you that I'm still a top running back in this league. And that's what he did. Aaron Rodgers kept looking his way, especially at the end zone. If he keeps doing that, then that's going to bode well for any Aaron Jones fantasy manager.
Absolutely, absolutely well said. Moving on to our wide receiver position, Cooper Kupp. Do you think he's happy and excited about his new quarterback. 36.8 fantasy points. Cooper Kupp got 11 targets, making 9 receptions for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns against an Indianapolis Colts defense that a lot of people coming into the season thought would perform much better than they have in the first 2 weeks. Let's talk about Cooper Kupp and let's talk about his production over the first 2 weeks with his new fancy quarterback, Matt Stafford.
Oh man, you gotta give him props, man. You go from someone like Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. You think, okay, maybe it'll be a little better. Man, Cooper Kupp is looking leaps and bounds better than he did with Jared Goff. No offense to Jared Goff, he's a great quarterback for the Lions. But anyways, his production has gone way up. I mean, I'm a little upset because Bobby Tree's production hasn't been there, but he's done really well with Matthew Stafford so far at the helm. And I think that, like I said before, Sean McVay, he has his quarterback that he wants in his system. And this is going to be, looks like a Super Bowl or bust kind of team right here, with the really good defense they got, with the offense firing on all cylinders. This week against the Bucs, it's gonna be a pretty good measuring stick for him.
Absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right. This could be a Super Bowl or bust year for this Rams team, especially with the fact that they're in such a tough division. I think the only team that they may have to worry about outside of this division is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But if they can get through this division and somehow edge the Buccaneers, then it's can you beat the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs? But I think this team has all the pieces necessary to do so. Our next receiver, Tyler Lockett. Listen, this guy has been an absolute steal for me. I don't know why he lasted so long in drafts. I think I was able to get Tyler Lockett. I know he was late, maybe 8th or 9th round.
Ooh.
I know I already had 3 receivers that I drafted before him, and he was still on the board. So I was like, let me just take Tyler Lockett. I know he's going to get some targets, but man, Tyler Lockett has been balling these first 2 weeks. He's been my best receiver this week with 31.8 points, 11 targets, making 8 receptions for 178 yards and 1 touchdown. We just talked about this Seattle game. I think his numbers could have been a little bit more crazy. He probably would have been the number 1 receiver had it not been for some adjustments made by this Titans defense. But man, the chemistry between Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett has been absolutely outstanding this year. So while I want to give Tyler Lockett his flowers, since we're talking fantasy crush, how has this bromance between Wilson and Lockett negatively affected DK Metcalf? Because I know DK Metcalf went a lot higher than Taylor Lockett in almost 99% of fantasy leagues. So is this just situational based on the 2 games that they've played so far, or is this a trend that Tyler Lockett is the true number 1 receiver of this team instead of DK Metcalf?
Well, that's a great question. Last year we were seeing Tyler Lockett games and then DK Metcalf games. It was sort of like a roller coaster ride with those two, I think this year, like you said, the comfortability between Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett is there, man. I think he trusts him a lot more. I think maybe DK is getting shadowed a little bit harder, But as far as route running speed, I think Tyler Lockett is in favor of DK in that aspect. I think that possibly this is going to be a trend, that this might continue a little bit until defenses figure out a way to stop it. And then that shifts back to DK. But in the meantime, this is crazy. I can't believe we're even talking about this. I took DK before Lockett was off the board myself. And I'm sitting here like, what is going on? Like, come on, DK. You're supposed to be this big, huge guy. bullying around people, catching a million passes, and this little guy is taking all your catches, man. What's going on? But I'm taking Tyler Lockett for at least the time being.
Right. Comment from William Hulse. Thanks, William, for this comment. Says Lockett was likely pushed down boards due to the dynasty overlap and age. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. But for redraft, I thought he would have went a little bit higher than he did. But thankfully he didn't. I scooped him up, and I'm reaping the benefits. So I will not complain there. Moving over to tight ends, we got Travis Kelce. Now, he said his last name is pronounced Kelce, but he will respond to Kelce. So everybody knows him as Travis Kelce. I don't know anybody that's going to call him Travis Kelce. He doesn't care. So we're going to stick with Kelce. I think Kelce sounds better anyway. Travis Kelce, 8 targets, 7 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown for a total fantasy point in week 2 of 23.9. I mean, this isn't a shocker, is it? Obviously, Travis Kelce is one of the top 5 tight ends in the league, probably top 3, definitely top 3. Some people have him at 1. A lot of people were talking about taking Kelce high in the first round, some as early as the number 4 overall pick. So we shouldn't be surprised by the numbers that Travis Kelce is putting up here, should we?
No, not at all. I mean, first, I want to go back to taking Kelce at number 4. First off, whoever's taking Kelce at number 4, invite me to your league next year. I would love to join.
Hey, listen, that advice came from a fellow FantasyHolics member.
Oh, no kidding.
Who was live on this channel. So that listen, that's why you need to be plugged into FantasyHolics, folks. If you're not already plugged in, this is why you need to be plugged in, because there are so many different opinions, so many different outlooks of how you can construct your roster. And with all of this information, you will be better suited when you go into your leagues. But yeah, I don't think we should be surprised at these numbers from Travis Kelce. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes has his 2 top targets. That is Kelce. That is Tyreek Hill. He had a solid game against a good Ravens defense, and I expect him to keep it up. Now, although he was 3rd this week in total fantasy points, actually in PPR format, TJ Hockenson had more fantasy points than Rob Gronkowski. I had to put him. He's another member of the multi-top performer of the week club, just because Gronk is still doing it. Still doing it at a high level. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 39 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We know the bromance that he has with Tom Brady. 19.9 fantasy points this week. Let me ask you this, Crush. Can Rob Gronkowski keep this up for a 17-game season? Can he consistently get you anywhere between 15 and 25 points for the entire season? Are you counting on Rob Gronkowski to give you this type of production every week?
Well, that's a great question. And yeah, actually, I'm going to say yes. They don't have him out there. He's not an every down player anymore, obviously. But when he is out there, he's got so many other weapons around him. They can't really focus in on him. So he's still going to get his receptions. He's still going to get his yards. He might even get a touchdown or 2 every other week. So I think that consistency is definitely worth having in your lineup every week.
Absolutely. We got a couple of questions in the comments. I want to get to this one really quickly because I know it's almost game time, and the Carolina Panthers do play tonight. Any other questions in the chat as far as fantasy starts and sits or who you should go with? We will definitely get to all of those questions and get those answers out for you. But I definitely want to get to this one from AJ Austin, who asks, is DJ Moore a good start this week? And I want to get this answered because if he's going to put DJ Moore in his lineup, he's got to do it quickly. before the Thursday night game starts between the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans. So, Kush, I'm going to kick this one to you. What do you think? Is DJ Moore a good start this week versus the Texans?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm starting him in a few of my leagues, actually. So fire him up, man. I think that him and Darnold have a pretty good rapport going on so far. I think it's only going to get better with time. And yeah, I could see DJ Moore having a pretty good game this tonight, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you would definitely want to start DJ Moore this week. As Crush just mentioned, his chemistry with Sam Darnold is clear. DJ Moore is the number one receiver in that offense. And when you look at matchups, the Houston Texans, as far as their secondary, is a little all over the place. And if Vernon Hargreaves is on DJ Moore, I like that matchup a lot. I love Moore's route running. And Vernon Hargreaves is one of those bait corners where he'll try to bait you into doing one thing. And he's also one of those corners that likes to gamble a lot. So he'll take some chances. And if he gambles at the wrong time, DJ Moore is going to beat him and beat him bad. So I think DJ Moore would be a good start this week if you need a starting wide receiver or if you need to throw somebody in at your flex. Let's finish the rest of these top performers. We'll ask some more questions and then continue on with the show. We only got two more. Here at FantasyHolics, we do show love to the kickers. Okay, we show love to kickers. All right, kickers are people too, and we've seen in this game that we're talking about, the Giants versus the Washington football team, a kicker won this game. Could have lost it had it not been for a bonehead penalty from the Giants special teams, undisciplined offsides. But a field goal won this game. If we look at the Cardinals versus the Vikings could be sitting at 1-1 right now. But they're not because their kicker missed the last second field goal. Graham Gano, 21 fantasy points, 5 for 5 on his field goal attempts, 2 for 2 on his extra points. That means he did not miss a kick with a long of 55. And this is important to me because I had Jason Myers, the kicker from the Miami Dolphins, in one of my leagues. That's significant because the Miami Dolphins scored 0 points against the Buffalo Bills. I couldn't even get a field goal out of those dudes. So 21 points from your kicker, that could swing a win or a loss in your favor. So, like I said, we show love to the kickers here on FantasyHolics. And last but not least, defense and special teams, the Buffalo Bills. Sorry, Tua, I had to do it to you. I know you got hurt this game, got a little rib injury. 22 fantasy points from this Buffalo Bills defense, 6 sacks, 1 interception, 2 fumbles recovered, 0 points allowed. Crush, is this Buffalo Bills defense legit?
Man, they're really starting to look like it, huh? I think, well, I wouldn't say against Washington it'd be a good measuring stick, but pretty decent against the Steelers. Really good against Miami. I mean, I think it's really tough to tell, especially right now, because, like you said, Tua was out. You know, they couldn't get anything going, obviously. 0 points. I think they're a good start this week, obviously. But for right now, they look pretty legit.
Yeah, I mean, this defense swarms all over the field. The best part of the defense from them that I love the most is their defensive line. I've talked about it on my channel before. That defensive line is 8 deep. If you look at that second string of that Buffalo Bills defensive line, you can put that second string defensive line on any other team, and I guarantee you they are starters. That defensive line is deep. They have a great rotation. They allow the linebackers to flow, and we know in the NFL and football in general. Coverage helps the pass rush, but saying other way around, pass rush helps the coverage. And I think they proved that in that week 2 matchup. Let's jump into the comments and see what we have here. We have one from Brett Hodgson. Got a question. It says Trayvon Williams or Corey Davis PPR. Williams had a fumble last week, but they played a bad defense. Davis draws the Broncos secondary, and he says, sorry, he means Tyson Williams. So Tyson Williams, running back for the Baltimore Ravens, or Corey Davis, wide receiver for the Jets. In PPR format, if you had to choose one over the other, who you got, Crush?
Oh, I'm going Tyson Williams here. I don't know if you guys know this yet, but I'm a Denver Broncos fan. You can't tell by the jersey, but huge Denver Broncos fan. I watched last week against the Jaguars. I almost ripped my hair out, whatever hair I have left, watching James Robinson get a pretty decent amount of runs there. But no, don't start Corey Davis over Tyson Williams. I don't like the Jets this week against that Denver defense, period. I don't like him. I don't like their running back. I don't like their quarterback. I'm going Tyson Williams all the way.
Me too. Got to go Tyson Williams. I think he's in a better offense. When you're in a better offense, that just lends to you having more opportunities and better opportunities to move the ball. As you mentioned, Brett, Davis draws that Broncos secondary. So he's going to have to contend with Kyle Fuller, who we know is no slouch. And Patrick Surtain II, listen, he's a young kid. He's a rookie. But, man, does he know how to play corner, or does he know how to play corner? I don't care what, the draft analyst said. Well, he doesn't have great top end speed and he can get beat. His fundamentals, his footwork, his instincts, his football IQ, he just always seems to be in the right place at the right time. Obviously, in that division, his biggest test is going to be going up against a guy like Henry Ruggs, going up against a guy like Tyreek Hill, those 4-2 guys. Of course, they're going to give him problems, but what 4-2 guy doesn't give any corner problems? I don't know too many 4-2 corners in this league right now. So Tyreek Hill is getting behind everybody. Henry Ruggs is getting behind everybody. But when you talk about fundamentals, being in the right place, good footwork, good hips, good eyes, listen, I love Pat Surtain. So Corey Davis going up against 2 really, really good corners this week, especially with Zach Wilson struggling a bit. He's in the NFL. His offensive coordinator is his first time as a full-time offensive coordinator calling the plays. So that's a rough go. So definitely taking Tyson Williams over Corey Davis there. Let me see if we have any other questions. Okay, no other questions as far as who should we put in the game. So let's move to our next segment. Crush, stock up, stock down. Last week we talked about hot or not as far as the waiver wire. But this week I want to talk stock up, stock down. Who are some players that we drafted high or drafted in the mid rounds, or that we drafted with the potential that they would do well, and they haven't lived up to the billing, versus some players who, we didn't anticipate getting much from, and they have surprised us and performed really well. So stock up, stock down. Give me one name, stock up, one name, stock down.
Okay. So to start with the stock up, I'm going to start with Deebo Samuel. Yeah.
man, I knew I liked you.
Yeah. Deebo Samuel, man, he's getting the targets. He's getting the yards, dude. He is doing it all for San Francisco right now. I am loving me some Deebo Samuel, and I am hopping on the train. I just love it right now. As far as a stock down, got to go with James Robinson here. I think people drafted him pretty high, expecting him to have another pretty good season like he did last year. And then was kind of average, maybe even below average for the first few games. I didn't really anticipate that at all. And now you got everyone trying to sell him. and it just doesn't look good for James Robinson right now.
Yeah, I was definitely anticipating a lot more from James Robinson with, the year that he had last year and with the unfortunate injury to Travis Etienne. We knew that he would be getting the bulk of those touches in that running back group. So the lack of production is scary. I'm trying to think of a stock up. Okay. My stock up is going to be Teddy Bridgewater.
I knew I liked you.
Oh, man. Listen, Two Gloves is balling.
Yes.
Teddy Two Gloves is playing really, really well, even with the unfortunate injury to Jerry Jeudy. I think he's in a situation where he's comfortable. He's in a situation where he's able to command the offense, and he's running it really, really well. So my stock up is going to be Teddy Bridgewater. Definitely didn't expect that from him. I honestly thought that Drew Luck would have beat him out in that quarterback competition. He did not. But Teddy's playing really, really well. And once Jerry Jeudy comes back, if he's 100% healthy, I think it'll only get better. Now they do have some stiff competition in that division, but we all know with that altitude, Mile High is a tough place to play. So as long as he can get it done at home and squeeze out a couple of road victories, I think the Broncos will be right in the thick of it for the wild card. Stock down, I have two. Both are running backs. Saquon Barkley. We drafted him high because of his name. We know who he is. We knew that there would be some type of, lead up getting back to 100%. We know he's healthy enough to play, but he's been out of football since week 2 of last year. And although we're seeing Nick Bosa play really well right now, he plays a different position than running back, who really, really relies on speed, burst, mobility, agility, planting the foot in the ground and going, cutting, all of those things. So it's been a little bit, slow paced for Saquon Barkley right now. Granted, that offense is kind of up in the air. Offensive line is a little bit shaky. So stock down for Barkley. But another stock down, and I think this is more of what's going on with this particular player, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, one of my leagues that I'm playing in, I'm serious about. But the other league I was, messing around. It's a buddy of mine's league. He started it. He asked me to be in the league. And I was drafting before him. So I had the 8th pick and he had the 9th pick. He's a Cowboys fan. So Zeke was on the board. It was Zeke and Alvin Kamara. And I was like, if I take Alvin Kamara, I know he's going to take Zeke because he's a Cowboys fan and he's going to talk about it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take Zeke just to piss him off. And I took Zeke. And now I'm regretting it. Zeke, he doesn't have the same pop. He doesn't have the same explosion. Yes, he got in the end zone last week. But Dallas is a running back by committee. Tony Pollard, he looks like the back that has the pop, that has the explosion, that's hitting the holes hard, and is displaying that burst, that can get to the edge, turn the corner, and take it upfield. He also is catching the ball out of the backfield. So not only do we have a back that looks better, but we have an offense that is rolling with the hot hand and splitting those touches between the backs. So definitely Ezekiel Elliott is my stock down. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way, but unfortunately it is.
That's so rough.
Man. All right, Crush, man, let's get through this last segment. Let's get ready for some Thursday night football. As always, we had questions in the comments section, but I'm sure there are some other things that we are thinking about. Who are your, and wait a minute, let me hide that, update that. It should say that. There we go. Not week 2. We're in week 3. Start and sit for week 3. Give me a quarterback. Give me a running back. Give me a wide receiver. Give me a tight end. If you want to give me a kicker in the defense, you can. You don't have to. But give me those 4 main positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end.
All right. So to start things off, I'm actually going to be starting Danny Dimes against the Falcons.
Ooh, okay. Give me more. Tell me why.
Some guys are in super flex leagues, so you don't really have a choice. But look, Atlanta's got a bad defense. Period. All right, and yeah, Danny Dimes is a little inconsistent throwing the ball, but you got to remember, man, Danny Dimes has some wheels. All right, he looks better running the ball than Saquon Barkley does right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if he trusts himself running the ball more, he's going to do it, and he's not afraid to do it. So I see if this offensive line is breaking down, if the play is breaking down, Danny Dimes, he's just going to run, man. It doesn't matter. And I think he at least gets 1 rushing touchdown this week. So I think with that rushing upside that he has against that defense, I'm starting Danny Dimes. Now, on the flip side, for my sit, I'm actually sitting, is it Davis Mills, the Texans quarterback? I'm sitting Davis Mills because if you're starting Davis Mills, you're in trouble. This guy doesn't have any experience coming into this game. Carolina's defense is playing really well, especially last week.
They're ranked number 1 right now after 2 weeks.
Yeah, so please don't start him. That's my start. That's my sit this week. All right, running backs. Let's get into the running backs. Starting Chase Edmonds against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, we all thought that, most of us knew that James Conner wasn't going to be that great in Arizona. This looks more and more like the Chase Edmonds show every week, man. I really like Chase Edmonds. I really think he makes a turn. He ends up being the RB1 for this team. Not a big fan of James Conner, but against this Jacksonville defense, fire him up 100%. So let's see. And for my sit this week, man, that's really tough. I really don't like to do this, but I think I'm going to sit. If Henderson can't go for the Rams, then I'm sitting Sony Michel. All right. That should be pretty simple right there. You're going against the Tampa Bay defense. You just don't run against them. So sit Sony Michel. If you're starting Henderson, he might not even be 100%. So even then, I'm not going to start him. So just avoiding all the Rams running backs this week. All right. Moving on to wide receivers now. I'm going to be starting Mike Williams against the Chiefs. All right. Keenan Allen's there. Keenan Allen's going to get his touches. But Mike Williams, man, boy, was I wrong about him. I'm definitely eating some crow on him. I'll tell you that right now. For the longest time, we always thought he was too inconsistent. He is boom or bust. He's looking like a pretty legit threat out there. Don't you think?
I've always been a fan of Mike Williams. A good friend of mine, he calls him the man child because he's just such a big wide receiver. But what he's able to do, how nimble he is, how quick he is on his feet. He attacks the ball at the highest point. I love Mike Williams. I've always been a fan of him.
Yeah. I'm starting him this week for sure. So a sit this week for the wide receiver position, I'm going to have to go with DJ Chark against the Cardinals. I think that, especially last week, it was pretty evident that Marvin Jones is the guy for Trevor Lawrence. He threw his way a lot last week. DJ Chark didn't really get that many balls, if I remember correctly. And it just looks like he's being phased out of this offense. Ooh. So I just don't like what I'm seeing out of DJ Chark. And so I'm going to be sitting him for sure. So for tight end. All right. Don't mind me. I'm just looking at the schedule real quick. Tight end. So I'm going to be starting Noah Fant against the Jets. Got to go with my man there. I think a lot of us thought that last week was going to be the Noah Fant show, but it ended up being the Cortland Sutton show. Noah Fant still got his targets, and I still think he does get his targets, but let's sprinkle in a touchdown this week, I'm thinking. Cortland Sutton can't get all the love. So I'm starting Noah Fant this week against the Jets. As far as my sit goes, I almost did it to your boy. Man. I almost said sit George Kittle, but I can't do it. No, man. He's been underwhelming. At least last week he was. It was just really disappointing as a Kittle owner, dude.
I agree. Kittle is tough because he has been underwhelming, but then he has those classic games against the Packers.
Yep.
So do you want to take a gamble of him having another classic game against the Packers, or do you think the trend of him, being underwhelming will continue? I mean, as a 49er fan, I can't even answer that question with 100% certainty, just because I think he could have another underwhelming game if the 49ers start the way they did in Philly, the way Jimmy started that game, missing low, missing high, missing wide, missing behind. It was bad for the first quarter and a half, and then he kind of found his rhythm. I think he completed 70% or more of his passes, which is insane to me. But if we start slow like that, then it could be another underwhelming game for Kittle. But if Jimmy can find his rhythm early,
you drafted George Kittle pretty high. Obviously, I'm not going to sit him, but my sit actually is probably going to be Dallas Goedert against Dallas. Okay. I don't think he's going to have a pretty good game. Not as far as volume goes. I'm not really excited to fire up Dallas Goedert. So if you have any other options out there, why don't you actually send us a message and we'll figure it out together.
I can dig it. Okay, so for quarterbacks, I have Sam Darnold starting versus the Texans. I think every week he plays in this offense, he gets a little bit more confident. I think them right now sitting at 2-0, playing a Texans team who will be down Tyrod Taylor, and I think they are starting Davis Mills this week. This number one ranked defense so far, I think, gives him more opportunities. And CMC is playing lights out. I love Sam Darnold. I'm sitting Carson Wentz versus the Titans. Reason one, I don't think the Titans have another bad home game like they did against the Cardinals. Reason two, Carson Wentz, how do you sprain both of your ankles both of them in the same game, Carson? Really? Okay. Moving on. Running back, I got Tyson Williams. We talked about him earlier versus the Lions. We saw what the 49ers were able to do week one. Raheem Mostert was averaging 10 yards a carry before he went down, but then Elijah Mitchell came out of nowhere and still carried the ball for 100-plus yards and a touchdown. We saw what the Packers were able to do with Aaron Jones week two. He was our top performer, able to get in once on the ground, 3 times through the air. So I expect Baltimore to follow the blueprint of weeks 1 and 2 and really take advantage of the mismatch that they'll have with the running back position there. I'm of the same mindset where you are as far as my sit. You're sitting the Rams running backs, and I'm sitting the Bucks running backs. This has potential to be game of the week. This has potential to be a shootout, which means Matt Stafford and Tom Brady are going to be passing the ball everywhere. You may be able to get away with these running backs in the PPR format, but let's be honest. These quarterbacks are not dinking and dunking. They may take what they give them a few times, but it won't be enough to give you the fantasy points that you need to get a commanding lead. These two quarterbacks are going to be pushing the ball down the field. Sit the running backs for this matchup because they're not going to help you. I'm surprised you didn't say this. You didn't go this way. I'm starting Cortland Sutton this week. I love his matchup against the Jets corners. who are the Jets corners. So the Jets are on the road in Denver, struggling offense, struggling rookie quarterback. Teddy Two Gloves should have multiple opportunities. Sutton's going to get his targets. He's going to get his catches. I'm starting him. I'm sitting Brandon Cooks this week, and yes, Brandon Cooks is the only weapon that the Texans have. So he is getting force fed the ball. Don't like his matchup this week against the Carolina Panthers defense. I think Dante Jackson is going to be with him stride for stride. He's going to be in his hip pocket all day. That's speed on speed. And then on the off chance that they put J.C. Horn on him, J.C. Horn is bigger, and I think J.C. Horn can bully Brandon Cooks. And we know that Brandon Cooks struggles with corners that are able to get his hands on him and bully him. He's a smaller wide receiver. He's not very physical at the line of scrimmage. So Horn can get his hands on him and bully him. Dante Jackson is going to be hip to hip with him all game. So I expect them to take out Brandon Cooks, eliminate him from the offense, and force someone else on this offense to beat them, which I don't think the Texans have the pieces that can do that. Won't spend too much time on this one. I am also starting Noah Fant versus the Jets. I just love this matchup between the Broncos offense versus the Jets defense with the way both teams are playing right now. If I had to sit one, I'm going to sit tight end Gerald Everett. He hasn't been getting the targets that I thought he was going to get in this offense. Yep. Again, it's been a love fest between Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett. At some point, some of those targets are going to have to go to DK Metcalf. I think Everett is a luxury. I think, there will be games where he gets a few catches. He may get in the end zone because that's what the defense dictates. But he's not the focal point of that offense at all. We know it's Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf in that running game. So behind those four entities, Gerald Everett could be fifth or sixth in that pecking order. So I'm sitting him this week against the Vikings. I like the matchup of Eric Kendricks on him anyway. That's going to do it this week. Crush, excellent show. Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and expertise. Before we get out of here, let's talk about tonight's matchup in a little bit more depth. Not that much depth. What are you looking for tonight and from a fantasy perspective? And who you got winning this game?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So from a fantasy perspective, it's going to be all Carolina, man. There's nothing there for the Texans, I don't think. I think CMC is going to have a pretty good game. I think DJ Moore is going to have a good game. I think Sam Darnold's going to have a good game. I think that defense is going to have a really great game. I think they're going to force the guy into making some mistakes. I think they're going to be able to stop the run, stop the pass. I'm not looking for many points to be scored by the Texans, but I'm looking for at least 4 touchdowns from the Carolina Panthers offenses tonight.
Yeah, I could see that. And I could see if it's not 4 from that offense, it may be 3. And that 4th one comes from this Carolina Panthers defense.
Right.
Before we get out of here, we're 2 weeks in, so we can kind of touch on this a little bit. We have 2 musical groups. The first musical group, they go by the name of the Goose Eggs. That's right. These are your 0-2 teams. The Indianapolis Colts, New York Jets, New York Giants, both New York teams 0-2. Yikes. Oof. Atlanta Falcons, Jacksonville Jaguars, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Detroit Lions. Now, one of these teams is going to get their first win because the Giants and the Falcons play each other. So somebody on this list will no longer be on this list. But that's cheating. That's cheating. So outside of the Falcons and the Giants, which one of these teams, Colts, Jets, Jags, Vikings, and Lions, has the best chance to remove that goose egg from the win column?
That's tough. I'm actually going to go with Minnesota here.
Okay.
against Seattle.
Okay.
I think it's a spicy take. I'll tell you that one. But
it's a very listen. I like it because that means Seattle loses. I'm not going to argue with you. It's spicy, but I like it. I like spicy food.
Yeah, I think they're very close to beating the Cardinals there, and I think if they can bring that same mentality into Seattle, I think that it all depends on if Dalvin Cook is healthy as well. If you got a healthy Dalvin Cook, I think you have a pretty good chance to win. But if he's not 100%, I think that the win percentage goes down for them.
Dare I say it? I'm going to say the Jags.
Jags, okay.
I'm going to say the Jags because
I thought my take was spicy.
I'm going to say the Jags because the Cardinals were so close to losing to the Vikings last week.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when you talk about travel. Arizona traveled traveled East Coast to play Tennessee, traveled back west for their home game against the Vikings, now have to travel back east to play Jacksonville. I think the wear and tear and that jet lag from back and forth, east, west, I think that might play a big role in this game. If the Cardinals start off slow and if the Jags can find a way to get a rhythm, maybe get James Robinson the ball and allow him to run the ball and open up some holes, and if Trevor Lawrence can be effective with his passes, then I think we can see an upset. So I'm definitely putting the Cardinals on upset alert in week 3.
I like it.
Now, opposite of the Goose Eggs in the Battle of the Bands, we have the undefeateds. We've got the Broncos, my 49ers, Carolina Panthers, the Raiders, the Buccaneers, the Cardinals, and the Rams. Again, 2 of these teams on this list face each other. See, no boy band stays together. There's always fighting amongst the boy bands, right? They're always disband. So the Buccaneers play the Rams. One of these teams will have an L in the loss column after this week. So, again, that's cheating. Broncos, 49ers, Panthers, Raiders, and Cardinals. You already know mine. I said the Cardinals could possibly lose to the Jags, so we won't take too much time because we're almost hitting an hour. So I'll let you finish this one off, and we'll get wrapped up. Of those 5 teams, who do you think has the greatest potential to get their first loss this week?
I'm going to go another spicy take here. I'm going to say the Raiders against Miami.
Ooh, okay.
Miami
without Tua?
Without Tua. They're starting Jacoby Brissett, man. Here we go. We're doing this. I think the Raiders looked pretty vulnerable at times during those first 2 weeks there. I think that they have a pretty good chance to pull it off as long as they can cover the deep ball with Mr. Henry Ruggs there, because he's going to take the top off of defense, and you got to watch out for him. But I think if they can establish some ball control, you have Jacoby Brissett as a game manager, I think they can keep this low and actually keep it close to the point where they can actually pull out a win.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that Dolphins defense. I think their corners find a way to contain Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards. I think their linebackers find a way. We know Darren Waller is going to get his, but I think they find a way to limit him as much as possible. So I like that. I think there is a potential, although the Raiders have started hot, 2-0 against the Ravens and the Steelers. I do think there is a potential for them to get their first loss this week. All right, that is going to do it. That's going to wrap up our show tonight. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want more fantasy football content, give us a follow at FantasyHolics on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. We are your premier spot for all things fantasy football. We appreciate your time. Get your lineup set before the Thursday night game. If you have any questions, pop in the Facebook. You can leave a comment on the wall, and I guarantee you somebody from the FantasyHolics team will provide you the insight that you need. to get going. Appreciate you, and we'll catch you next week.